Siouxland News starts right now with breaking news.
It has been talked about for weeks. Now a Manhattan grand jury has officially indicted former President Donald Trump. Thanks for joining us. I'm Larry Wentz, and tonight that breaking news is first at 5. The New York Times is reporting in the last half hour that the grand jury has indicted the former president, but the exact charges remain unknown at this hour as the indictment was sealed by the district attorney Alvin Bragg. The case surrounds alleged hush money Mr. Trump paid to porn star Stormy Daniels in 2016. The Times says the specifics about the indictment will be announced in the coming days. Now, Mr. Trump now becomes the first former president in U.S. history to face criminal charges. CBS News will continue the coverage at 5:30. Turning down to weather, we are on a severe weather watch here in Siouxland as the region prepares for the possibility of strong storms later this evening and overnight. Chief Meteorologist Kat Taylor joins us live from the Siouxland Weather Center. And Kat, what exactly are we looking at for tonight?
Well, we have the potential for some large hail, Larry, but for the most part, we are just kind of sitting and waiting. There are no severe thunderstorm watches in effect right now, but we do have an area of concern. This is our marginal risk for severe thunderstorms, and you can start to see a few little blips on the radar. We're going to be watching those storms develop here between now and roughly about 7 to 9 o'clock tonight. It's pretty cloudy out there, but if you look at the horizon, there is a lot of moisture on our Tatanka Golf Club Bahia Casino Resort camera. We have now jumped up to 69 degrees here in Sioux City. You can tell there's a cold front draped across Siouxland because we're in the 40s in Sheldon and Esterville, 76 in Tacoma. So really starting to warm up along that warm front. Thunderstorms really starting to get going between 7 and 9 o'clock tonight. 1-inch hail being the main threat with those storms. But believe it or not, on the backside of this particular low pressure system, we have the chance for snow as well. Winter weather advisories have just come out. I'll have details on that coming up.
All right, thanks, Kat. We do have some good news to report this evening. A new restaurant chain is coming to Sioux City. Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burger says it has completed the purchase of a piece of land in the Sunnybrook area near Fleet Farm. An exact address was not given, but the Wichita, Kansas-based company says it plans to start construction this summer and open sometime between October and December. They have 2 locations in Sioux Falls already, 7 in the Omaha area. This will be the first location in Sioux City. A Burbank, South Dakota woman has entered a guilty plea to a charge of vehicular homicide. 59-year-old Joyce Hawley entered that plea in Clay County, South Dakota District Court, admitting to crashing her vehicle through her garage and hitting and killing a woman who was in her backyard last July. Hawley admitted in her plea there was evidence she was under the influence of meth and alcohol at the time of the crash, which killed 54-year-old Elizabeth Williams. She will be sentenced April 27th, with prosecutors agreeing to recommend no more than 10 years in prison. The maximum sentence for that charge is 15 years. An overnight train derailment in west central Minnesota is just the latest in a slew of recent incidents, adding to the growing concern over the safety of the nation's railroads. CNN's Chris Wynn is in Washington with more on the government's response.
Rail cars bursting into flames early Thursday morning when a BNSF railway train hauling ethanol and mixed freight, including corn syrup, derailed in Raymond, Minnesota, forcing nearby residents to evacuate for several hours.
We take full accountability for it and will continue to be here until this is cleaned up.
Ethanol is a highly flammable chemical. The effects of exposure can include coughing, dizziness, and unconsciousness. But so far, officials say there have been no injuries or reports of toxic exposure.
Safety of the community is our utmost priority.
This comes nearly 2 months after the February derailment of a Norfolk Southern train carrying hazardous chemicals in East Palestine, Ohio, that sparked a days-long inferno. And it's just the latest in a string of recent incidents calling the safety of the nation's railways into question.
The reason that we're pushing so hard on railroad safety is to make sure there are fewer of these incidents. This happens more often than I think most Americans realize.
As the federal government launches investigations into the causes of the derailments, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are taking action.
The RAIL Act makes important and pragmatic changes to the way our nation's rail industry operates, ensuring that our families, friends, and neighbors are kept safe.
A bipartisan group of Ohio representatives recently proposed legislation that includes provisions to enhance federal oversight of freight trains, increases funding for hazardous materials training for first responders, and increases penalties for rail safety violations. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn.
9 soldiers are confirmed dead after 2 Black Hawk helicopters crashed late last night in Kentucky. A safety crew from Alabama will be reviewing what happened. Now, the crash is among the deadliest training exercises in the U.S. military and the deadliest at Fort Campbell. In 2018, 2 soldiers were killed during a training mission while flying an Apache helicopter there. Governor Andy Beshear expressed grief about this tragic incident.
We're going to do what we always do. We're going to wrap our arms around these families. And we're going to be there with them, not just for the days, but the weeks and the months and the years to come. We're going to let them know that they are loved, they are special.
The 101st Airborne Division based in Fort Campbell is an infantry division specializing in air assault operations. Well, did the federal government try to influence social media companies before and after the 2020 election? That includes requests to censor what could be posted on their platforms. Republicans in Capitol Hill spent the day laying out that argument for why it not only happened, but why the Biden White House broke the law. Sinclair national correspondent Christine Pizarro breaks down the perspectives from both sides.
Republicans call it a coordinated campaign of censorship. What they see as the federal government working to control what people do and don't see online. Examples include encouraging social media sites to block a New York Post story about the president's son. GOP lawmakers also seizing on requests by the CDC to block what it called disinformation about COVID-19.
The censor's goal is simple. Limit what Americans can see, limit what Americans can say, which is a direct assault on the right to free speech that is protected by the First Amendment.
The First Amendment at the heart of the hearing, which centered on a lawsuit, Missouri v. Biden, filed by then Attorney General, now Senator Eric Schmidt.
The Biden administration has coerced, cajoled, and colluded with social media companies to censor disfavored speech.
Democrats once again decrying the decision to focus time and resources on this, while other more pressing matters impact the country. Stalled debt ceiling negotiations, yet another school shooting, and threats to democracy like the January 6th attack they say resulted from misinformation repeated online.
Social media companies actually amplify conservative voices, and everyone here should be alarmed when that amplification pushes out false and dangerous narratives.
The hearing often growing contentious.
You're not recognized, sir. Isn't it true that even—
Yes, I am. I was recognized.
But Republicans assert the weaponization of the federal government has continued, including with the IRS showing up at the home of journalist Matt Taibbi around the same time he testified at the last weaponization hearing earlier this month, promising to keep the issue at the top of their agenda. Democrats once again harshly criticized the credibility of the witnesses. Republicans continuing to argue that this censorship is taking place not in the name of truth, but in the name of power. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Meanwhile, Republican Senators Rand Paul and Josh Hawley, they don't see eye to eye on a potential TikTok ban. Paul blocked Hawley's efforts to fast-track a bill banning the popular Chinese-owned video streaming app, saying such a move amounts to an attack on free speech. Hawley, like many other Republicans and some Democrats, believes it represents a security threat to TikTok, that it collects user data for the Chinese government.
China is accumulating data on Americans that are using TikTok. That data can be used in a cyber war. We are about to have a conflict with China over Taiwan, and there may very well be cyber warfare between two countries.
Some privacy advocates worry the U.S. will need to install a China-like media firewall in order to ban that app. Now, a separate bill is being pushed by the White House that would give the Commerce Department broad authority to ban TikTok and other apps originating from foreign countries. A group of Starbucks workers in eastern Iowa is launching a bid to unionize. The Iowa City location would be the first Starbucks store in the state to unionize. The workers approached Starbucks Workers United in January, and now they've filed the necessary paperwork with the National Labor Relations Board. One worker says they decided to push the effort after reaching a breaking point with management at that location.
We as a store get to negotiate on our terms with what we want, what kind of benefits we want with corporate. You know, we're the people here working, making drinks.
Some workers have taken issue with the decision to cut hours for certain employees at such a busy store. The employees still do have a hold on official vote on unionizing. Coming up in 4 minutes tonight at 5, new evidence of weapons deals between Russia and North Korea. But first,
tensions rise between the U.S. and Russia after an American reporter is arrested and detained. I'm Nicole D'Antonio with the reaction and the calls for his safe return.
Russia has arrested an American reporter and accused him of spying. CBS's Nicole D'Antonio has more details from the White House.
Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was taken out of a Moscow courthouse after being charged as a spy and ordered to be held until at least the end of May.
We are immensely concerned over Russia's announcement that it has detained a U.S. citizen journalist.
Gershkovich was arrested hundreds of miles east of Moscow. Russia's security forces accuse him of acting on behalf of the American government to collect information about the Russian military-industrial complex. The Wall Street Journal says it vehemently denies the allegations from the FSB and seeks the immediate release of our trusted and dedicated reporter Evan Gershkovich. Yaroslav Shershigov says Gershkovich had recently interviewed him, and they discussed Yevgeny Prigozhin, the owner of the infamous Wagner group of mercenaries fighting for Russia in Ukraine. Prigozhin was asked about the detained American journalist and said he knew nothing about it, but joked that people could search the torture chamber in his home. The White House says it is working to free Gershkovich. It also condemned Russia for detaining another American citizen.
This espionage charges are ridiculous. The targeting of American citizens by Russian government is unacceptable.
The administration says it is unsafe for Americans to be in Russia at this time and urged U.S. citizens to leave the country as soon as possible. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, the White House.
The State Department would not say whether Gershkovich's arrest was done as retaliation. Just last week, the Justice Department arrested a Russian national and accused him of being a Russian spy who entered the U.S. illegally. The White House says it has new evidence that Russia is looking to North Korea for weapons to wage its war in Ukraine. The White House alleges there's a deal between the two nations that would see food and commodities returned to North Korea in exchange for weapons. Pentagon says it hasn't seen a new transfer occur yet, though.
We have not at this time, beyond the, which had been previously announced, beyond the shipment that Wagner Group had previously arranged for. But it's, again, something we continue to keep a close eye on.
Russia suffered considerable losses in military equipment and personnel in Ukraine. It's believed North Korea's food situation is the worst it's been under Kim Jong-un's 11-year rule.
Keeping my eyes peeled forward to the development of severe thunderstorms tonight, and behind this storm is the chance for snow. That's in your forecast after the break.
Your Siouxland weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Kat Taylor.
If you've been inside all afternoon, it's hard to believe it is just a notch below 70 degrees out there.
Yeah, we've seen a surge in temperatures just in the last 2 hours. I mean, it felt pretty chilly just a couple hours ago, but now it is really warm, and that is not a good sign if we're looking at storm development here. So we do have a marginal risk for severe thunderstorms tonight. Main threat's going to be 1-inch hail, possibly slightly larger, with any thunderstorms that can get going roughly between 7 and 9 p.m. this evening. They may continue through about midnight, so we're going to be watching for development here within the next 2 to 4 hours. Behind this system, there's actually a chance for accumulating snow where we have a winter weather advisory in effect there in the purple. If you look way back, that's a blizzard warning, so we could see blowing snow in this area through 4 a.m. Friday night and Saturday morning. So Woodhouse camera here in Dakota Dunes, we have lots of cloud cover. That and the wind makes it feel a lot cooler than it really is, but it's 69 degrees in Sioux City right now, 76 in Decatur, 71 in Norfolk, but still hanging on to the low 40s in Sheldon, Esterville, and the Iowa Great Lakes, still upper 30s. Wind gusts are starting to get pretty speedy on the south side of that warm front where we have wind gusts over 40 miles an hour, and it's that south-southeast wind that's bringing the warm air, but also bringing in moisture. Dew points are approaching 50 degrees here in southern Siouxland, and usually when we're talking severe weather, 50 degrees is the lowest threshold of that, so we are approaching the potential for severe thunderstorms. Doppler radar showing things are pretty clear. We don't have any thunderstorms developing, but what we're going to be watching is back here along that warm front for those thunderstorms to pop up between 7 and 9 p.m. this evening. So future radar, as we go throughout the evening, we will see those thunderstorms pop up. This model trying to keep it closer to about 9 p.m. before they actually get going. And it's going to be at this point where we have the potential for 1-inch hail. As we go throughout the night, we may see those big rumblers all the way through about 2 o'clock in the morning with a cold rain through the rest of the night. That cold rain continuing off and on through tomorrow, although I think a lot of us will be actually dry for a big chunk of tomorrow before the backside of the system arrives after lunchtime, where we see rain changing over to snow, the heftier chance for snow arriving after dark tomorrow night. And we will see a blowing snow coming down pretty good as that system blows through Friday night into Saturday morning. When it comes to accumulation, since we are so warm right now, not really going to see a whole lot of accumulation. Best chance for 2 inches is going to be up along the Minnesota state line, but a trace 2 inches possible in the white. Down here, none to a dusting in the dark gray. So for tonight, we have 46 degrees, scattered storms up to 1-inch hail possible, maybe slightly larger. Tomorrow, it's going to be a very windy day. We may see periods of clearing, 50 for a daytime high and then dropping. So cold rain with a few showers, mainly in the morning, with that mix developing late. Wind gusts to 45 miles an hour, maybe closer to 50. Over the next 7 days, you'll notice we are significantly cooler on Saturday, but we're back up to the 60s again on Sunday. Sunday looking fantastic before we do it all again. A chance for thunderstorms changing over to a wintry mix and snow Tuesday into Wednesday.
All right, going to be a busy week ahead. All right, thanks, Kat.
Appreciate it, guys. Coming up next in sports, a live update from Dallas ahead of Iowa's appearance in the women's Final Four. Plus, the Hawkeyes football team continues to put in the work during the spring practice. It's all ahead right after this.
Siouxland Sports with Sports Director Alex Northcutt.
Good evening, Siouxland sports fans. In a little over 24 hours, the Iowa Lady Hawkeyes will take the floor at this year's NCAA Women's Final Four. Coach Bluter's team continues to get ready for the big event later this week as Owen Sebring from our sister station across the state of Iowa brings us a more in-depth update from Dallas, Texas. Owen.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alex. You know, with the exception of just a select few media events throughout the week, the teams at this week's Final Four are kept very much out of the public eye. But just for this afternoon, for a short amount of time, we were granted access to the floor to see the Hawkeyes on the practice court ahead of tomorrow's Final Four game. Now, the disparity of experience between Iowa and South Carolina is indisputable. The Gamecocks have been here each of the last 3 seasons, while Iowa hasn't been here in 30 years. Nonetheless, Iowa wants their tournament run to last just a couple more days here in Dallas.
I feel like it's kind of back to like my freshman year when I first got here. You know, we were the underdogs. Nobody really expected us to, you know, even make the NCAA tournament, and then we advanced to the Sweet 16. So, you know, we've been saying all year long, like, why not us? Why can't we do it? So that's just kind of the mentality that we're going to have. We're going to believe in ourselves. We're going to believe we can win the basketball game, and, you know, that's really all you can do.
We've played in really big games, so we'll use that to our advantage. But, you know, we're not treating it any differently. You know, we prepared for each game just the same way as we have before.
I mean, everybody loves an underdog, right? I mean, everybody cheers for the underdog. So I know a lot of Hawkeye fans weren't able to get tickets, and that's too bad. We're going to feel a lot of love, you know, from the TV, you know, audience that's here. But I'm hoping we can convert some local Dallas Texans to be Hawkeye fans, y'all.
Lisa Bluter, Midwest Queen. Well, we saw Caitlin Clark win the Naismith Award yesterday, Associated Press Player of the Year. She was named today, and just within the last hour, she won the Wade Trophy for another National Player of the Year award. We are witnessing truly a special week for a very special player. Reporting live in Dallas, Owen Sebring, Iowa's News Now Sports. I mean, Siouxland News. That's where I am.
He's got it. He's a pro. Oh, and again, thank you for the appreciated coverage down in Texas. Again, that game going to tip off Friday night at 8 p.m. Well, we transition now. The Iowa football program has now been active with spring practices for the last week as the coaching staff looks to get an idea of what the roster will look like come the fall. Now, with guys going in and out of the transfer portal, that is, the Hawkeyes offense will look a little different from last year's group, highlighted by new quarterback Cade McNamara. At the core of Iowa's success is veteran leadership on the defensive side of the ball, as a few upperclassmen weigh in on the team's progress throughout the first few practice sessions this spring.
I'm really happy with the way that the young guys are improving every day. That's kind of been my goal. It's just kind of take that on that leadership role and just kind of help them with everything. Just like the little things in the classroom, out on the field with the fundamentals.
Not going to make any promises by any means, but I know we're going to be getting after it every day in preparation, and we will continue to uphold the standard that we have as a football team. And if we continue to do that, I think we're going to look pretty good during the season.
The Hawkeyes will have a little over 3 weeks before they suit up for the annual spring game, a contest set to take place in Iowa City Saturday, April 22nd. Well, Matt Boldy didn't score a goal, but the Wild still came out on top last night, picking up a huge win on the road over Colorado. Frederick Gaudreau produced 2 goals in the winning effort, helping lead Minnesota to a 4-2 victory over the Avalanche. The Wild now take a 3-point lead in the Central Division standings, picking up their 3rd straight win in the process. Minnesota now has just 7 games left before the playoffs, set to face Las Vegas in back-to-back games this Saturday and next Monday. And finally in the NBA, the Timberwolves weren't so lucky Wednesday night, dropping their game with the Suns 107-100 in Kevin Durant's return to Phoenix. Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns combined for 56 points for Minnesota. However, it wasn't quite enough to keep their 4-game win streak going. The Wolves now drop to 7th in the conference standings with 2 big home games coming up this weekend, hosting the Lakers tomorrow night, followed by a game with the Trailblazers this Sunday. That's all we got for SportsCat, a active next couple of days in the forecast.
Yeah, and lots of ups and downs and a whole lot of wind in your forecast. We are watching the radar like a hawk tonight for the development of possibly some strong to maybe severe thunderstorms along a warm front across the area where we could see 1-inch hail possible. As we head into tomorrow, we start out with some cold rain showers with a wintry mix late, changing over to blowing snow Friday night into Saturday morning. Going to be cold Saturday, but Sunday looks to recover at 65. And then we do it all again next week. We have Tuesday with storms changing over to snow by Wednesday.
Time of the year to batten down the hatches, tie down those garbage cans.
Yeah, for sure.
Good night.